the Pines. I've been involved in delivering training over the years in various aspects to support children with neurodiversity and with social and communication difficulties. And I also cover some of the schools in the area around the Charleston and Glenurquhart area. But today we're going to have a think about transitions through the day. So what is a transition? Well, this is the dictionary definition that I've put up here in the first box. A transition is a period of changing or moving from one condition or experience to another. Transitions take up a large part of all our lives. We have major transitions in our lives and we have minor transitions. Major transitions could include moving house to a new area or town or city, starting school, leaving school, starting college or uni, making new friends, starting a new job, starting a relationship, having a baby. These are all fairly major transitions in any life. But minor transitions could be waking up, going to the toilet, walking downstairs, opening the fridge, moving from one room into another. Some research suggests that 25% of a child's school day is taken up with transitioning. So that includes coming in from outside, hanging up your jacket, removing items from your bag, moving into the class, sitting down, opening a jotter, closing a jotter, switching subjects, going out for break, coming in from break, going out for lunch. You get the picture. If a young person struggles with transitions, then that is a lot of time spent trying to cope and manage. I worked with one family where the boy became really stressed if his mum was not in the same room as he was, even if she was in the kitchen next door or upstairs or just outside in the garden hanging up the washing. That change for him affected his sense of security and predictability. That minor transition wasn't minor for him, it was really major. So why might transitions be difficult? Transitions can be difficult for anyone. You know, any nervous or shy person might be reluctant to walk into a busy room. Even the most confident performer can be anxious about walking on stage. You know, most folk are worried about arriving somewhere they have never been before. You might recall starting your first job or going to a class or training or the gym for the first time. And you may recall feeling worried about where you were going to park the car or where you were going to leave your bike, what you were going to say when you first arrived, who was going to greet you, what was going to be said, where you were going to leave your bag and jacket. You know, were you to bring a snack? Should you have your water bottle with you? What if you didn't understand or manage to do what was asked of you? What if everyone else there was better than you were experts, in fact? How would that make you feel? On top of that, imagine feeling tired or hungry. You know, maybe you were nervous because this was something new, so you didn't feel hungry. Maybe you didn't sleep well last night because you were worrying about it. And on top of that, imagine feeling overwhelmed by the noise or the smell or the bright lights. All of that, and then the leader of the group doesn't explain clearly what you're supposed to do. And that's you overwhelmed and feeling as if you've been chucked in at the deep end of the swimming pool and you can't swim. That's what transitions can be like for some of our children and young people. If they have a neurodevelopmental difficulty, then this can be happening throughout their day, every day. A neurodivergent child or young person who struggles with organizational skills, planning, paying attention, starting tasks or staying on task, or having the self-motivation to complete a task is going to struggle with transitions. So no wonder they're having difficulty. Also, the concept of time can have a factor. If a child can't judge time, I mean, they might be able to look at their watch and say it's 10:45, but if you say to them, okay, we're going to do this for the next half hour, they don't know how long half an hour is. That can be really stressful. They don't know the difference between 5 minutes and an hour, or an hour and a day, or a day and a week. You know, that is going to be really difficult. I was able to suggest to the ladies, Alison and Nikki, that my presentation here was going to be about 20 or 30 minutes, which is fine for all of us because we can work out how long that is. We know what that means. But if a child doesn't know what that length of time means, it's very stressful for them. So there are different types of transition. We can break our transitions down into 3 types. Most transitions will involve a physical aspect, walking from one room to another, standing up from sitting down, getting up from lying down, opening or closing a book or a laptop or a game, even lifting cutlery or a glass. So transitions can be tricky for a child if they have any coordination difficulties. But equally, if a child is feeling comfortable and happy where they are, they might be reluctant to move and shift position. Mental transitions occur when we can change how or what we are thinking. So we finish a game or a story and shift our mindset back to the present. But if a child or young person can't switch very easily, they might still be in Minecraft mode or Harry Potter world, and moving to the next situation or to the present or concentrating on a conversation can be really difficult or stressful. A mental transition is an internal one, so it's not always easy to detect. I know someone who goes round schools teaching music, and they were saying yesterday that it was their last day of a block of Wednesdays in a certain school. And when one child in the class heard that this music teacher wasn't going to be back next Wednesday, he started crying. What will we do next Wednesday when you're not here? He said. He was unable to shift his mindset away from what had always been happening for the last few Wednesdays. He couldn't imagine what they were going to do next Wednesday without that teacher. But his class teacher was able to say to him, we're going to use this as a building block and do more music things next Wednesday. So that was more reassuring for him. Emotional transitions are also internal ones. So maybe hard to observe for some children, but then again, if a child is excited or feeling competitive after playing a game outside or being online playing a game, they may struggle to switch their emotions to doing a calmer task. Equally, coming inside from being outside running around can be hard to help them calm down again. And if we add all these 3 transitions together, physical, mental, and emotional, we're beginning to realise how difficult transitions can be for some children. I was speaking to one of my colleagues on Tuesday there. She's an OT. And when I told her I was doing this talk on transitions, she shared with me about a young person she has been supporting who really struggles to transition from school back to home. He regularly ran out of the school playground and straight out onto the road, which was really dangerous, even when their parent was there in the playground waiting to meet them. What has worked for them is for a staff member to hold the child's hand and walk them out of the playground to the car where the parents are waiting. And that has been easier for the child to then open the door and get into the car. Perhaps for him, the mental switch was harder. Having school staff assist him out of the school ground was easier than having a parent come into the school ground. Or perhaps it was an emotional transition. My colleague also signposted me to emotional regulation. And I've put up here this zones of regulation, which the OTs are really promoting and trying to encourage around the schools. It is just a simple approach that can help children develop self-regulation and better understanding of how they feel emotionally. And I think, Alison, you have some nice links on that.
Yeah, I do. The zones of regulation is a really good tool and really one that you can use at home and in school. And as Shona said, I know some of the schools are using it as well. But I'm just going to pop a link into the chat for a little video. And it explains some ideas about how you could use the zones at home. And a particularly nice one is to use little Lego characters. So this is something that you could use for every member of the family, and each person has their own little Lego character. And you literally move the characters between different coloured flat pieces of Lego just to indicate how people are feeling. So yeah, it's absolutely great. Definitely worth a look. I forgot to say actually at the beginning, we will be sending out an email after today's session with all the links on there. So please do have a look at the links afterwards, but don't worry about taking things down because you will get that information sent out to you afterwards. Thank you, Shona.
Thank you, Alison. Okay, so how can we help? I've put together 10 top tips and strategies for us to have a look at. Obviously, not every strategy is going to help. You may have tried some may be new to you. You know, every child is individual, but I thought I'll put out all the suggestions, supports that I can think of for you to have a look at and have a try. Because trying to understand what is going on for the child or young person is key. And perhaps minimizing the transitions wherever possible can help. Does your child have to do all the steps? Or can the steps be staggered? Can your child transition at a later or earlier stage than the others? Could they finish one task a bit sooner so they've more time to transition on to the next one? If there is a waiting involved, for example, having to line up or waiting to get in the car, waiting to go somewhere, waiting to go to the cinema, what could the child be doing while they are waiting? I remember a wee boy in primary 1 who became really anxious whenever he had to leave the classroom and line up to walk down the corridor to the hall. We came up with the idea of giving him a clipboard that belonged to his teacher. And it was his responsibility to carry this clipboard down to the hall and then to bring it back. And that, I think, not only having the physical aspect of holding on to this clipboard, which was helpful for him, but also the responsibility of looking after something that belonged to his teacher just really helped him and reduced his anxiety. So, tips 1 and 2, I've put up create routines, and I've added in backward chaining there, and sing songs. It is really important for your child or young person to know that they are in a safe and predictable environment. You can help a child through a routine by breaking it down into simple steps and using a visual sequence. I've put up 2, you can see on the screen there, 2 examples of visual timelines. I've got a brushing your teeth timeline here and having a shower. Now these are on our Pines website, and I think the link will be there. Alison, I'll put that up for you, or Nikki. Just having a visual sequence like that can help some children know what the next step is. Also, singing a song I've put up here two very familiar, this is the way we wash our hands on a cold and frosty morning, a good old tune. And if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. We know these tunes, or most of us know these tunes from our childhood. Singing engages the brain in a different way, and it just helps us to remember. So instead of this is the way we wash our hands, we could have this is the way we put on our coat, and singing it through to help the child with the activity can be helpful. Or you could be singing, if you're happy and you know it, close your book. If you're happy and you know it, line up now. Just putting a tune to a sequence again can help for some children, and keeping to that routine can help the child's anxiety. Just like we know a program is about to start or finish with a theme tune on telly, do, 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 do. We all know that's the start to EastEnders, but also, at the end of the program, you get the do, 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 do. That's the cliffhanger. That's how it's going to end. And we know that. It helps us know when it's starting and when it's finishing. And, over the years, mothers or parents have sung lullabies to their children to help soothe them and lull them to sleep. So playing a song or a tune for different parts of the day and keeping that consistency can really help a child, especially if they like music. One family I worked with had a child that loved nursery rhymes and songs and music. And in fact, that helped him start to talk because he started repeating the nursery rhymes and the words of the songs. So that dad made up a brush your teeth song for his son because his son really struggled with brushing their teeth, and singing the tune every time for brushing your teeth helped that wee boy through that. If your child likes consistency and structure, then build that into the transition process. Backward chaining is another technique which can help, especially if a child is struggling to cope with an entire task. So with backward chaining, I've got the picture here of the adult helping the wee one put on the jacket. For backward chaining, the adult would help the child put the sleeves in, put the jacket on, put the zip in, and they would pull the zip to maybe a quarter of the way, and then the child would finish pulling the zip all the way up. And that way they're meeting with success. They've helped finish the process. And then the next time you can do it, you can add an extra bit. So maybe you help them then learn to put the zip together. Then they can put the jacket on, then they put the sleeves on. So you backward chain it until they're confident and able to do it. Similarly, I worked with another child who couldn't cope with being in assembly for the entire length of time. So a staff member took him in just for the last part of assembly. And that way, when it was finished, he was able to leave with everybody else and go back to the class together, rather than going in at the beginning and then when he got stressed, having to leave in the middle and everybody seeing him upset and having to go out. And also that way, the staff were able to lengthen the time that he went in. First, he was in for the last 10 minutes, then maybe for the last 12 minutes, last 15 minutes, and it lengthened that way. But each time he was meeting with success. So tips 3 and 4, get their attention, use visual cues. For a lot of children, saying, okay, everyone, or listen up, guys, will not necessarily register for them. And maybe shouting through from another room, get your coat on, we're leaving in 5, is not maybe necessarily going to register, especially if they're really focused on what they're doing, if they're playing a game or if they're enjoying something. Coming right up to the child, getting into the same room, crouching down in front of them, maybe putting a hand on their arm, being face to face and saying their name, pausing, then giving the instruction. So I've put up here, John, wash your hands. That's going to help them come into the present, get into the right mental mind frame to know what you're saying and understanding it. Using visuals can help too. You can see I've put up here in the middle, that's objects of reference. Objects of reference are really good for helping show an object to help the child know what they're going to move on to. So for one mum, giving her wee one, then showing them their nappy just before they were going to have a nappy changed helped reduce the stress, or giving them a plastic duck before it was time to go up to run the bath. And you can see here in this picture that I put in the middle, they've got a wooden spoon there. This is from a school where the child was moving to a different room to do some baking skills, some home egg. And then you can see there's bells. They would hand the bells to the child when it was time to go to music. And it was again in a different room. So having that object can help the child with that transition, helping them know what they're going to. But it's important to keep that object as the object of reference and not then start using it to do your mixing. But that's objects of reference. Also, showing a photograph of the member of staff that the child is going to be working with, if it's somebody different from one part of the day to another, or at the end of the day, if it's granny that's going to be picking them up, or it's daddy, or it's mummy, just having a photograph of the person that is going to be collecting them, again, can help with that transition. Keeping things as visual as possible. If a child can't imagine something, then give them something that they can see to help them and know what's happening. You can see up in the top right-hand corner, that's a visual about going home, which is up in a classroom. And you can see for everybody, it's time to go home, get your backpack and your coat. But then there's 3 options down the bottom. Obviously, in this class, some children are going home by bus, some are going by car, and some are walking. So you've got that, you could pull these off as Velcros and have somebody 3 different areas for the 3 different ways of going home, but keeping it nice and visual. And I've also got a first and then board. Again, that's on our Pines website, but a first then can be helpful. We're doing this first, then we're going on to this. And that can keep being shifted throughout the day as you move from one activity to the next. Again, just keeping it nice and visual for them. For older children, having a written time schedule can be helpful. You don't have to have board maker symbols or visuals. It can just be a written sequence. We all take notes, don't we? Or certainly I do. A wee shopping list, so I remember to pick up everything I need, or notes for the day in your diary for who you need to phone or who you need to talk to. That can all be helpful, but also a phone can be really useful. There are loads of different apps that you can put on a phone for a teenager or a young person to help with routines and transitions, calendars, planners. I was having a wee look last night. There's even a toothbrushing app. There's a daily routine planner app. There's a mood tracker app, self-care routines. There's loads, and they're all free, that you can download and have. And for an older person to be looking at your phone isn't making you any different from everybody else, because we're all doing it. So that can be a useful thing. And then social stories is another really useful strategy that can help with transitions, helping with a new transition, helping them understand why they're transitioning, helping with a new routine or a different way of doing something. And I've got here the Carol Gray is the author of the Social Stories, and this book is on our Pines, in our Pines library and on our e-library as well. You can borrow this, which I have just done, but I will be putting it back. Our Pines Library is open every Wednesday from 10 till 4, and there are lots and lots of really good resources in there. So you can go into the library, into the Pines building, and go into the library on a Wednesday. This book has got loads of different templates of social stories, examples that you can have a look at, and then obviously write the story for yourself. And we have the Social Stories film recorded. Rachel Geddes and myself did that film, and that's on the Pines website. You can watch that, and then we have different social stories workshops that you can sign up for, and we can help you then. Once you've drafted a social story, we can go over it with you. So social stories are great, but I've put down here on the screen about clips. This is a new thing that we've, well, maybe it's not new, but it's new to us. We discovered Clips is a downloadable app for iPhones, but there are other versions, I think, for Android phones. But Clips is a way where you can make a social story on your phone or device, where you can film things, or you can download photographs, or symbols or emojis, and you can speak, and it will record your voice and highlight it as you're talking. And this, the one I've put on here, is for attending an appointment at the Pines. And at the end of the session, Alison will play it for you just to let you see an example of how you can do it. But it's a great resource to have. In fact, I recommended it for a child who was struggling from going inside to going outside. Encouraged the school staff to take a wee photograph of the other children doing it and what was going to be happening, so that it would help reassure the child. So that's another really good, helpful resource to have. Number 5 and 6, use timers or try countdowns. For some children or young people, lots of advanced warning can really help them. For others, that just raises their anxiety. So finding out what works for your child to help reduce anxiety and smooth transitions is key. One teacher I spoke to recently knew that advanced warning about a fire drill for one child in her class was just going to spiral her anxiety and stress. So instead of having the Johnny coming in the morning to say, okay, class, the fire drill is going to happen at 2 o'clock, she stopped that and she gave 1 minute's notice. So at 1:45, she said, all right, children, the fire drill is about to go off. And she knew that that just would help this particular child not get worked up into a tizzy. So knowing your children is really important. For older children, timers on phones, again, can help them prepare, or using a stopwatch to work out how long events are going to be or journeys can help. One teenager I worked with used Post-it notes and timers to help him study for his exams. He had Post-it notes all round his bedroom as visual prompts, and he used a countdown to help him finish one subject and then move on to the next, because he was doing a number of hires at the time. And he found that this really helped him. Sometimes a visual 3, 2, 1, either using your fingers or holding up cards, can be helpful, or a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And of course, our good old sand timers can help for some children. But I saw one PSA use the timer on her phone with a ringtone for 10-minute slots, because this particular child that she worked with, who had autism, was able to cope with a task for 10 minutes, knowing that for the next 10 minutes, she was going to get a break to do something that she liked doing. And then when that ringtone went for her 10-minute break, she was willing to go back and do another task. And that worked for her throughout her day, which was excellent. So 7 and 8, reduce your language, be careful with questions. I've put this handout up on the slide here. Now, I know it's very, very small, so I've sent the link to the girls again, and it will be available for you to download if you wish. But I thought it was really useful just to put it up, because all the suggestions here are really useful. We can help our children hugely by modifying the way we communicate to them, especially if they're in a stressed state. Because you know yourself, if you're stressed about something or worried, the last thing you need is somebody at you, question after question after question, because you just can't think. So I've said the first thing up here is say the child's name first and try and get their attention. We've discussed that. But the next thing is reduce your language. Try to match what you say with the level of language that the child is at. So if they can only manage 2 or 3 key phrases, don't bombard them with loads of language. Try and keep your instructions to that. You know, instead of saying, switch off the video now, it's finished, you know, program's over, that's it, it's time to go home, or it's time for a bath. You just need to simply say, video's finished, bath time. That makes it much, much easier for them. Also, saying things in the order in which they're going to happen is going to be much easier for a child. You know, if you're going to say to a child something like, I'll read you a story, but after you put your pajamas on and go and brush your teeth. All they've heard is story. They're not going to think about pajamas and teeth brushing. They've heard story. But if you put it in the order in which you want them to do it, pajamas on, brush teeth, then story. That's much more, that's much clearer for them. Giving choices as well. A child will understand much easier if you give them a choice. If you say something open-ended like, what would you like to play with? That's just really difficult to make a decision on, isn't it? But if you give them a choice, do you want a jigsaw or a board game? Then and show them it at the same time, that's going to really help them. Or what would you like for snack? Again, I don't know, can't think. But if you say banana or yogurt, then they can choose. And tell your child what to do, not what not to do. Try and keep all your instructions nice and positive, and try to avoid simply saying no. So instead of saying, no, don't touch that vase, you'll break it, say, give me the vase, and then give them an alternative. Let's read a story. Instead of saying, don't run, turn it around and say, walk, or don't shout, quiet voice. It's giving them the instruction in a way that they can understand and telling them what you want them to do. We've talked about using gestures and objects, pictures and symbols, and also using finished. The good old Makaton sign, finished, is a really good visual backup to saying that something has finished, has stopped, and it's time to move on to the next task. And using first and then. We've said that before. The first then board is a good one, but also when you're speaking, first lunch, then computer. And use questions only when the child really has a choice. You know, if you say to a child, and you really want them to do it, would you like to read this book? Well, you really want them to read the book, but you've opened up the opportunity for them to say no to you. So just say, time to read the book. That's going to be much clearer for them. Again, being careful with questions is vitally important. Bombarding a child with questions, like I said, can be really, really hard. And all the different questions, you know, there's a staged approach to questions. What questions, where questions, who questions, when questions, that, you know, they get harder and harder to understand. Having open-ended questions where you're just giving a yes or a no answer is a much, much easier question to answer than a when did this happen or who was there. That's far harder to understand. I've put up on the screen here a little YouTube video, which again is on our Pines website, about being careful with questions. My colleagues put together a whole load of the Words Up videos, and that's one of them, and they're really nice to have a look at, and have a look on the website about the Words Up key messages. They're always really useful too. So 9 and 10. Offer praise, use rewards. You know, we all need encouragement and reassurance, and we all need a bit of motivation to keep working. You know, just like we expect a pay packet at the end of the month when we've been working, some of our children and young people might be motivated to work for a reward, as with a let's make a deal board. Doesn't work for all of the children, but some of them can be really motivated to know what they are working for and how long it's going to take. Once they've got their 4 stars, then they're going to get the reward. Or they might be motivated to work through a transition if they can choose something that they like once they're done. So having a choosing board with all their favourite activities or treats can be motivating for some children. Also, some children respond to reward charts or marbles in a jar, and once the jar is full, they get a treat, or bricks in a tower. Once a tower is so high, then they get a reward. I know I work better if I'm stopping at a certain time for a coffee break or a biscuit. And remember, your child might be hungry or tired, a bit lethargic. So a quick snack before they move on to the next thing, next task, or a jumping game before having to do homework or a job that they don't really enjoy might just help rebalance them. And remember, verbal praise is always motivating. I was watching Gogglebox last night for a wee bit, and I don't know if any of you have watched it. There's a couple on it called Giles and Mary. They always sit in their upright armchairs together. And Giles was saying last night how his mother used to always praise him whenever he managed to brush his teeth by himself or get his clothes on by himself. And his wife said, "Yes, Giles, and that was when you were an adult," which made me laugh. But I thought, praise works. I praise my family if anybody remembers to put their dishes in the dishwasher. Good job, well done. Keep it going. So yeah, praise is really important. And my last slide. Yes, Christmas is coming. We have just put up our Christmas page on the Pines website, and we have these items on. I've just highlighted 3 of the things that are on the page. This is the incredible 5-point scale on the left-hand side there. And again, we have our book in the Pines Library. You can have a look. It has lots of nice suggestions of ways in which you can use the incredible 5-point scale. I just made this one with the Santa hats on for helping children, but it could help adults as well, balance their emotions for Christmas. For an incredible 5-point scale, you never want to get beyond a 3. A 3 is when you're beginning to feel stressed. A 1 or a 2, you're feeling good, you're calm, you're coping. If you get to a 3, then you need to do something to reduce the stress and bring it back down to a 2 or a 1. You never want to get to a 4 or a 5, because by then the child has lost it, they're not coping, they've really got upset. So incredible 5-point scale is a nice one because it helps the child to work out what it looks like, what it feels like, and then what they can try to bring themselves back down again. The Christmas countdown is there as well. That's just a calendar that you can tick off or cross off your days. So the child, again, has got a nice visual prompt as to how many days it is before Christmas, or you could have it to the school holidays to when they're going to be finishing. And then on the right, I've got the a Christmas I'm working for, so a Christmas let's make a deal, and a Christmas reward chart to put stars and ornaments onto the tree. And we also have a set of Christmas symbols on the page and some Christmas social stories, which are examples that you can use for what's going to be happening at Christmas, especially for families. But that's all there to have a look at. And I think that's it. Thanks, Alison.